think so. I know, it's hard to use.
Like, well, there's left and right, but also like more conservative, more progressive.
Let's get everybody to take their seats here and we'll begin.
Saved by the bell.
So good evening, folks. My name is Miles Berry. Tonight's event is organized by the Greater Hardesty Community Sustainability Coalition in partnership with Taproot Media and with YEGventures doing our live broadcast. So appreciate everyone being here tonight. Just a few housekeeping things. Our washroom here is inside through this door. We're encouraging people to have a one-way flow through here. Obviously, we don't have to worry about emergency exits. Thankfully, we've got some great weather here tonight. How's the volume? Louder? Okay. Let's see if we can fix that.
Into the mic, it should be good.
Okay. So just briefly, a little bit of background about the Greater Hardesty Community Sustainability Coalition. Our group is a grassroots citizens group from East Edmonton, lending our time, talent, and experience to ensure residents of our 50s era area has a voice in its renewal and sustainability and future. As our area has aged to maturity, its mix of commercial and residential properties gradually came into some disrepair, and some vacant commercial properties emerged, and some crime also increased. Our team is entirely volunteer-led by civic-minded folks passionate about rebuilding a new, functional, connected, and healthy community node. Many of our team members also share professional expertise and offer that as pro bono contributions to achieve our goals. We are especially interested in conversations about gathering the business community together and diversification of our housing stock. So no matter what your background or experience, we welcome and need passionate input as we move forward with further development, primarily are focused on 101st Avenue redevelopment. And I'd like to, of course, acknowledge our volunteers who helped make this happen. You'll see many of them around here today wearing our yellow t-shirts. So how about we round of applause for our volunteers. I think that's it. With that, I'll hand that over to our moderator, Karen.
Thank you, Miles. How's the sound back there? I have a quieter voice. Okay, excellent. Welcome everyone, both here and in person, watching the live stream. My name is Carolyn Matthews. I'm the co-founder of Taproot Edmonton, which is a local media outlet, and our mission is to help communities understand each other, understand themselves better, and people within communities to understand each other better. And so I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to do that in real life out loud with you today. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that we are gathered today on Treaty 6 territory, traditional lands of the Cree, Nakota, Blackfoot, Dene, and Saulteaux people, and a gathering place for many generations of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. And we are participating in a municipal election where the wards in our city have been named to acknowledge the long-standing and continuing presence of Indigenous people. So here we are in Ward Métis, and we have the opportunity to hear from most of the candidates who are seeking to represent you at City Hall. And in particular, the Greater Hardesty Community Sustainable Coalition has convened us to find out how these candidates would represent the needs of Edmonton's mature neighborhoods. So just a few ground rules before we start. Candidates, you're going to have 1.5 minutes to introduce yourselves to the people, and when I'm done talking. After that, then you're going to have 1 minute each to answer the questions that we've prepared to ask you. That way that we can hear from all of you on the most topics possible. I will call on you when it's your turn to speak, so you won't have any, is it my turn, or anything like that. I'll call you when it's your turn. Please walk up to the mic. The timer will begin when you begin speaking, and Alan here will give you a 15-second warning when you're almost out at the end of your time. Try not to touch the mic. We're in COVID times. But talk right into it so everybody can hear you. We won't have an opportunity for audience participation, but I'm sure the candidates would love to hear from you afterwards, and they also all have ways to reach them by other means, so please ask them your questions directly. Remember that this is a municipal election. There's a federal election going on at the same time. There's a lot of politics in the world. Let's stay in our civic lane for this. And candidates, please respect the time limits. It is honestly going to be the #1 way for you to make a good impression on these people, is if you can keep within the time. All right, so I am now going to ask the candidates to introduce themselves one by one. I did a random draw to determine the order for this, so it's just the heavens who decided who gets to go first and second all the way to 8th. And again, you're going to have 90 seconds to tell people who you are and why you're running. And we'll start with Stephen Townsend.
I guess this is the opposite of elementary school when I was always last. So growing up here in Edmonton, my family didn't have a lot in terms of material wealth. My mother was on AISH because of a physical disability, and my father was not around. Needless to say, things weren't always easy for us, but I consider myself lucky to have been surrounded by supportive friends and family and community members who helped keep me on the right path. And that path would eventually lead me to own and operate my own small business on White Avenue, while serving on the Old Strathcona Business Association. My partner and I moved to the mature neighborhood of Parkdale-Cromdale nearly 10 years ago. We moved to that area because we love the tree-lined streets, the accessible amenities, and everything that it offered, especially the awesome neighborhood and neighbors that we now call friends. Since starting a community garden in the area, we have both dedicated our time to volunteering in the community. I volunteered for the Rat Creek Press board and written for them. I've also sat on the Police Chiefs Advisory Council, and I guess I only have 15 seconds left, so I just want to say, if you want somebody who's boots on the ground, does work every day in the community, I'm your guy. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next up is James Kazawan.
Close your eyes for a second and think about the kind of city that you want to live in. I want to live in a city where stewardship of the river valley is a priority.
We're going to restart the clock. I'm going to call an audible here, actually, because you're all different heights. So I'm going to let you touch the mic.
I don't want to touch
Well, okay. There's hand sanitizer here if you want to.
I can touch the mic if you want to wash it after, or
You just want everybody wash their hands, because I want people to be able to hear you. So move the mic so you can talk
you hear
right
me
into
okay
it.
now? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Sanitizer below you there, Jim.
Gotcha. Close your eyes for a moment and think about the city that you want to live in. I want to live in a city where stewardship of the river valley is a priority, where the trail systems are maintained, access points enhanced, and the majority of the river valley is in a natural state where people can enjoy it. I want to live in a city that respects mature neighborhoods and understands the unique needs of these areas. That means enforcing regulations for infill development rigorously and continuously. I want to live in a city that's affordable. Council needs to be much more proactive in making affordability a key component of development and service delivery in our city. This goes for zoning and new developments where young families are an afterthought at best, and often very little housing stock is built to accommodate them in mature neighborhoods. It also applies to transit fares and accessing city amenities, which seem to be the first items in jeopardy at budget discussions. I want to live in a city where urban sprawl is taken seriously and measures are put in place to see expedited redevelopment in the urban core, areas like the Northland site and the quarters. Vibrant, mature neighborhoods, affordable services, a well-maintained and natural river valley, a sustainable city. All these are possible. You just need to vote for someone committed to those priorities. I'm James Coswell, and please vote for me on October 18th.
Thank you. Next up is Liz John West.
I do have to lower it.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Good evening, everyone. My name is Liz John West, and I'm running to be your next city councilor. Right now, we're going through some tough times. With the pandemic, we have climate change, we have mental health issues, we have economic hardships, unfathomable overdoses, racial inequities, political upheavals, and the list goes on and on. You need a leader who has experience managing through tough times. The next 4 years will not be easy. We don't know what the future holds. You need someone who has gone through this with others. I have never encountered a challenge in my personal or professional life that did not tackle issues head on. I bring extensive knowledge and experience to crisis situations and calm solutions focused approach. Oh my, it's 15 seconds. You deserve a leader who understands the climate, shares your dreams for the city, and will not give up in order to build a brighter future. Edmonton is my home and my community. Ward Métis is where my heart resides. It has nurtured my family for 30 years. It has offered me a sense of belonging, and the people in this community are my people. I'm committed to working hard and making sure that Ward Métis belongs to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Carolyn Matthews.
I think I'm good here. No? So, good evening. I'd like to thank the organizers, the attendees, and my fellow candidates for this forum this evening. I have been, what I'm offering is a broad range of experience and a balanced voice. I have been a police officer in Vancouver, and when I was selected to work the special unit where my partner was either a social worker or a psychiatric nurse. So I have direct experience working well with the cross agencies. And when it comes to addressing the social needs in our city, I will be able to bring that experience to bear. I've been a project manager at a startup medical school, and here at the School of Business, I was a director. I've also been a business owner where I've owned 4 different coffee shop locations, all located in pedestrianized zones. So when we talk about the 15-minute communities, again, I can bring my experience on how we can support entrepreneurs in our community. I have been listening, and residents have said that they want to be heard, not told what the city priorities are. A vote for Carolyn Matthews is a vote for you at City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Salar Melli.
Hello everyone, my name is Salar Melli and I'm running to be your city councilor. I've decided to run for city council since I invested in Albert Avenue community and one of the most mature neighborhoods in Edmonton. And after living there for 5-6 years, I realized the community has a lot of problems. Our core community is facing a lot of issues, such as homelessness, drug abuse, and problem properties that we have. I have dedicated my time for past while to coach soccer in our community with youth, and I see every day working with the youth how vulnerable they are to these kind of issues in our core neighborhoods. I want an Edmonton that is a place that everyone can thrive and everyone can imagine and dream about a great future. I have invested in Alberta Avenue as well. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm all about mature neighborhoods. I've invested in a historic building and turning it to a business. So 15-minute neighborhoods again there. My time is up, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Ashley Salvador.
Hello, everybody. It's a forum, but we can still be excited. How's it going out there? Okay, okay. And hello to everyone at home, too. I do want to thank the organizers for making this outdoor event possible. Obviously, in these times, we want to keep folks as safe as possible, so I really appreciate that. I'm Ashley Salvador. I'm an urban planner, also an entrepreneur here in town. I founded a nonprofit that really revolves around mature neighborhoods. It centers on creating opportunities for seniors to age in our communities, multi-generational families to live in ways that work for them. And, you know, for me, running for council is about bringing all of my diverse experience together. I've worked in the housing space. I've worked with seniors, multiculturalism, economic development, as well as inclusion and how to make our communities feel like they're places where everyone can belong. And for me, you know, I've been around at the municipal level for the better half of a decade at this point, working directly with councillors, with administration. I know what the role is. And having been on the other side of the table, I really know how important it is to have a councillor who's willing to sit down with you, willing to listen, and really willing to collaborate with community. So for me, bringing all that together, sitting on the city council side of the table, and being able to serve folks in that holistic capacity is something I'd love to do. I'm not a single issue candidate. Cities are complex, messy places, and I'd love to build them alongside you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next up is Corey Longo.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. I'm Corey Longo. I'm running to be your city councilor here in Ward Métis, and I just wanted to thank the organizers of this great event, all the volunteers. I know how much work it is to put this together, and all of you for showing up. Because you're showing up, you're here for community, and you're here because you're politically involved and active, and thanks for that. So we've got a really great campaign. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a working mom. I live in the north part of the ward in Alberta Ave. I used to be a registered nurse and a postal worker before that, and now I advocate for workers. I'm running. People often ask me, why are you running? And it's a really straightforward answer. The clear reason is to make the lives better of regular Edmontonians, who I think are often underrepresented at City Council. I think we've got a council that's been influenced and governed by big business and big developers, and I'll tell you, those aren't my people. My people are community residents. They're working families like yours and mine, and I'm running to be the clear progressive choice in this ward and represent you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And next up is Daniel John Kornack.
Howdy, how's everybody tonight? My name is Daniel John Kornack. We homesteaded up in grasslands. I was raised with the native people, the Athabascans. And I have a really good connection with both worlds, the understanding of the white man's way, of the written word, and the native way where nothing belongs to anybody and everything is a free spirit. What we would like to do is work with City Hall, with the Premier, with our Prime Minister, and saving our Coliseum, where we used to play hockey, and refurbish that into a native hospital. Using the LRT, as a link, and taking the medical students, the doctors, the students, both ways. They can stay at the Coliseum. They can sleep at the Coliseum. Let's save fuel. And the amount of fuel we would save just by not demolishing it, and the amount of money that we would save. I'm very happy to be here and proud to be in the most beautiful community I've ever been in the city of Edmonton, in the city of champions. God bless you.
Thank you. Candidates, you did amazing staying on time. Alan, you did amazing making them. That's excellent. Okay. Okay. So talk right kind of at the top of the mic and loud. All right. So now I have questions for you. We will go down the line this way and then back up this way, starting with a different person every time. So you will all get a chance to be the first person and the last person. I'll call on you when it's your turn. You're going to have 1 minute this time, 60 seconds to answer the question. And again, Alan will let you know when you've got 15 seconds left. So Carolyn, we're going to start with you. And the first question for everybody is, why is revitalizing mature neighborhoods important for the city?
Thank you for the question. I've been walking through all of the communities in Ward Métis through the winter, spring, and summer, and I've been impressed with just how people have maintained their communities, kept them vibrant, you know, for younger families to be able to move in. The mature communities are really the heart of our city. And it's so important that we invest the funds that are needed. Equally, as I've been walking through the communities, I have seen that some of the communities have not been maintained as well as they could or should be, from the alleyways, the roads, and the sidewalks. So I believe that we need to make further investments for the residents of Ward Métis. Thank you.
Next up is Liz John West. Again, why is revitalizing mature neighborhoods important for the city?
As probably many of you know, that all 30 neighborhoods in Ward Métis are mature neighborhoods. It's critical that revitalization happens. One, we don't have the sprawl. It's critical that the sprawl of Edmonton stops. It's very, very expensive as we extend. Second one is that I live in Alberta Avenue as well. We want our children back and we want the schools back. We have a beautiful community. If we do not revitalize our core neighborhoods, it's going to be a ghost town. And so we need the schools, we need better roads, sidewalks, all of those. It will bring the people back. And I've been there for about 30 years. And I would say in the last 5 years, I've seen it back because we've had new housing coming in. We've had new complexes. And it's wonderful to hear laughter of children again within our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Salar? So why is revitalizing mature neighborhoods important for the city?
To achieve the city's goal of 15-minute neighborhoods, I believe we need to invest in revitalizing our mature neighborhoods to make sure that these are the places that people want to live in. Again, going back to the issue that I brought up with the problem properties in a lot of our mature neighborhoods, that is an issue that's affecting these neighborhoods. I think that is something that we need to address. And we need to make these places attractive for businesses. With that comes density that we need to raise, but that also needs to be done in a way that it doesn't affect the character of our neighborhoods, because we have beautiful, mature neighborhoods. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Corey? So why is revitalizing mature neighborhoods important for the city?
Sure, thanks for that question. And I've been all throughout our ward, I've been walking around, door knocking, talking to so many folks, and I've seen our communities. I've seen that, you know, as we sprawl, as the city expands outwards, a lot of money and resources and time and effort are going into the outside communities, and our core neighborhoods, our mature neighborhoods, are getting forgotten. So I believe in vibrant communities where people can live healthy lives, where people can, you know, walk around, where they're not tripping hazards on the sidewalk, where we keep these services up to date and really provide safe and healthy communities for folks. The more we sprawl out, the more we do this, the more expensive it is for you. I've heard from folks, I understand this, it's a tough time already, and what we need to do is revitalize our communities and make sure that we take care of our core neighborhoods. Thank you.
Stephen?
So more and more, I think we're actually seeing people wanting to move into the core neighborhoods. We're seeing infill, we're seeing revitalization, but we need to make sure that we have the amenities to support people that are wanting to live in these communities. I moved here because I wanted to be close to downtown. I wanted to be close to amenities, but we shouldn't be fighting with city council every year to keep our pools open, to keep amenities, you know, free and accessible, right? So I believe that we should be investing so that we can keep those things going. We need new sidewalks, new roads, stuff like that. And it is coming along, but, oh, sorry, I thought you were upping me. But we need to keep that going, right? So we can't continue with urban sprawl. It's not good for the environment. It's actually detrimental to our environment, and it costs us a ton of money. And moreover, people want to live in the core, so let's build a core that people get the things they need. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Ashley.
All right, so why is revitalization important? This is my world. This is the world that I've been living in for the past few years, given the work that I've done in our mature communities. And really, it's about quality of life. You know, if you look at all the mature neighborhoods in Ward Métis, we've actually seen a population decline over the last 40 years. A lot of these communities used to have more people, more young families, and we've seen the results of that decline in schools being closed, grocery stores being closed. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that one, as well as key amenities. And, you know, the threat of rec centers being closed, maybe libraries being closed, the loss of those is really detrimental to the health, sustainability, and vibrancy of these neighborhoods. So being able to revitalize these areas, welcome young families back so that we can retain our schools, retain the amenities we love, and be able to attract more folks to these areas, that's something I've been incredibly passionate about. I think that one of the things I'm looking forward to is implementing the city plan. So Edmonton has a plan to revitalize these communities. It has a plan for creating 15-minute districts that are walkable, amenity-rich, where people can live healthy, active lives. We need to implement that. We need to execute that and follow through on it, and that's what I intend to do.
Okay. Daniel, your turn. And the question again is, why is revitalizing mature neighborhoods important for the city?
Thank you. I believe that with all the things that are happening in our society today, which everybody knows all the bad things that are happening, that by working together and producing, for example, in my case, the hospital, by making a hospital, also for the homeless, also for the people that are down and just need plain help to get through a rough time in their life. And all we're asking is keeping a building, and I know that I'm going on the same thing, but I was trained by the best activist in the world, and his name is Doug Brinkman. And I pay him special tribute because without him, I wouldn't be standing here today. And he encouraged me to do it. And I would just like to say to this community that votes, you know, when it comes down to it, a lot of people don't vote. And then in the end, well, why didn't you vote? Your taxes went up. Thank you.
James.
I've lived in mature neighborhoods for over 40 years and in Ward Métis for over 40 years and my whole life in this city. And it is so, so vital. I've watched over the course of my lifetime how these neighborhoods have been struggling to be able to keep the children in the schools. I'm a school teacher as well, and it's just vitally important. And it's also what's mentioned by the other candidates. It's also the fiscal element of this. We just can't keep doing what we're doing. If we keep sprawling out this city and we just have this veneer of services, of library services and police and fire that are spread out further and further, we're not going to be able to sustain that over the long term. And so it really does come down to quality of life and a selfishness in the sense that by having these vibrant neighborhoods, these mature neighborhoods that are healthy and vibrant, we are all the better for it. And will also be better for the sustainability of our cities. So that's what I see, and it's one of my priorities for sure.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to do the same order, but a new question. And Liz, that means you're first. And this question is, what would you do to attract families to mature neighborhoods?
One of the big things that I would say I would do is revitalize the schools. I know when we had young families, that's what we were looking for. Where do we want to move to? And the schools are critical. So revitalizing the schools as well as the amenities such as grocery stores, coffee shops, build up the businesses, the small businesses. Those will attract new families as well as people that have a sense of community. I'm quite involved in the community leagues and really have a vibrant community league within your neighborhood. Get involved and you get a chance to really get to know each other. As we all know, especially after COVID, how we lived in isolation and many of us were not happy about that. We need community. And so when I want to move into a community, I'm looking for a vibrant, active livelihood of communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Solar. What would you do to attract families to mature neighborhoods?
Hi. When talking about young families with children, and I have a 4-year-old girl myself, one of the most important things in my opinion is it has to be a place that you want to raise your kid. And also when my kid is 12, 13, this should be a place where she wants to continue that journey in. And I think part of that comes with cleaning up our neighborhoods from all the issues and challenges that we're facing. I agree about the schools with Liz here. I think that is very important. Youth programs. Unfortunately, province has dropped the ball on some of these youth programs and grants. We have to pick up some of that as well. Thank you.
Next up is Corey. What would you do to attract families to mature neighborhoods?
Thanks. So I'll tell you, I've got a small family, a young family. I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And to me, public services are so important, and families rely on public services. So right now we have a municipal government that's putting up cuts. They're trying to privatize our public services. My family, just like yours, I'm sure, relies on things like transit, relies on rec centers, relies on libraries, things like playgrounds and spray parks, like these beautiful services that are offered right here. And right now we've got people in City Council who don't understand those concerns. What they're doing is they're making decisions that are impacting and benefiting their friends, Edmonton's most wealthy and elite. And what I want to see is communities that work for families, that bring families in. And you know, when I was thinking about when we moved into Alberta Ave, it was about the arts. It was about community. So I think City Council definitely needs to prioritize the arts, especially after COVID, and make sure that we've got strong relationships with our community leagues. Thank you.
Stephen?
Hi, Stephen again. So one of the things that I think will make it attractive, that was the question, right?
Yeah. Yes. What would you do to attract families to mature neighborhoods?
So one of the things that louder. Okay. One of the things that I found living in a mature neighborhood like Parkdale, Cromdale, is that oftentimes amenities like our parks end up in disrepair. and the city only provides $250,000 to a community to build a park. Parks can cost upward $1 to $2 million to build a park. We're proposing that we make parks as part of the neighborhood renewal process. It would be just a tiny fraction of the overall budget. Another thing that we need to do is attract small business. We look at communities like Ritchie, Highlands, they have these cool little districts. And I think if we look at 101 Ave, that's the perfect opportunity to like build something like that where people can gather together. Communities have pride in these areas. They become gathering spots, and thank you.
Ashley?
All right, so for me, I'm not going to touch on the sort of public amenities piece. Having those amenities, absolutely 100%. Other candidates have talked about it. I'm going to talk about housing for a second. Because when a lot of younger families are thinking about where they're going to live, they want affordable, family-friendly housing. And they're often trying to decide, am I going to choose a mature neighborhood or am I going to choose a new suburb? And oftentimes, folks are leaning towards that suburban option because the affordability is lacking in our mature neighborhoods. Now, I am definitely in favor of gently densifying our areas. Infill is important, but the right kind of infill matters too. Oftentimes we see $800,000, $1 million skinnies going in, and that works for some folks, but a lot of younger families need that affordable option. Now the question was, what would you do to attract younger families, new families to these areas? And I'm going to give you one concrete action that I plan to take. Edmonton has a zoning bylaw renewal that's happening right now. Zoning is the rule book for where you can build certain types of homes in our communities. I would love to use that as a tool to open the door for more affordable, family-friendly housing in our mature neighborhoods, because that's a necessary part of this conversation. Thank you.
Okay. Daniel, you're up. And again, the question is, what would you do to attract families to mature neighborhoods?
My fascination in life is anthropology, the study of cultures. And in Canada, we have the most unique civilization next to the United States of America, where all different cultures now, let's say, for example, that are on 118th Avenue. The most beautiful campaigning I've ever done is 118th Avenue, and talking to the black people, to all the different cultures there. And it's just absolutely fascinating. And what I would like to say is the Native part is also part of that culture. We like to have everybody have their happiness, their joyfulness, and being just Canadian and making Canada the best place in the world to live. God bless you all. Thank you.
Okay, and James.
For me, it's all about zoning. If we want to see young families in these neighborhoods, we have to work on zoning. I'm actually speaking to council tomorrow on the Strathern Heights redevelopment proposal that's coming forward. 504 units are being taken out of that area, and there's going to now be 1,900 units, and there's zero accountability for affordability. I spoke out against the Hollywood Gardens development as well, and we fought with that developer to make sure that there's affordability built into neighborhoods. We need 2- and 3-bedroom units. And this is ground zero of how we're going to get affordability into these neighborhoods. I said it in my opening address as well. If we don't have affordability, we're not going to have these families in these neighborhoods. They are going to migrate to the suburbs, and that's where they're going to put pressure to put schools out there, and then there's busing, and there's all these things that cascade along from that. Zoning is not sexy, but it's the key element to me on how we actually build this city, and people have to be invested in getting that addressed at the city council when these things come up in our neighborhoods, making sure that we have affordable housing for young families.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for question 3, we're going to talk about transit. So, and Salar, you're up first. So sorry. Come back to the mic. Your turn. What would you do to attract families to mature neighborhoods? Thank you, and I'm sorry.
Well, I'm last. And I guess a lot of the points have already been addressed by some of the candidates before me, because for families, it's very important as they choose their neighborhoods that they want to have schools that have the safe crosswalks and the safe neighborhoods for their children to go to. They are looking to have the playgrounds that have been maintained by our communities. These are all important things. With my experience, having had the coffee shops and having been a business owner, knowing what it takes to take the risk to offer amenities to communities, we need to open up the permitting, making it easier and more viable for our communities to be able to have these services. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now is the third question, and Salar, you're up, and I won't forget the two of you this time. This question is, should LRT expansion carry on, accelerate, or pause, and why?
This has been a divisive issue on the campaign. There is folks from on both sides of this issue. I believe personally, I don't think we should scrap the whole thing or stop it forever. But I think pausing for a little bit would be a good idea, because I want to see some ridership studies from the ones that are currently built, and they're going to go into operation very soon as well, to see if we are really meeting those ridership demands. Because what happened with COVID, ridership has dropped significantly. There is a shift in landscape in transit where the new technologies are changing the world of transit. With the driverless cars around the corner, should we spend this big capital item? It's a question that I want to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey? So again, should LRT expansion carry on, accelerate, or pause, and why?
Sure, thanks. I've heard this on the doorsteps a lot, and people are really concerned about the impacts that the LRT is having on their lives. I will say that I'm a firm believer in transit, but it needs to be public. So right now what we have is a situation where we built a city and now we're trying to add LRTs to it, and it just doesn't, it hasn't made a lot of sense. There's a lot of challenges that people are facing, but that's the situation. As our populations continue to grow, we're going to need to move people around effectively, efficiently, and in a climate responsible manner. The problem that I have with the LRT right now is that it's privatized. It's a P3, and what's happening is we're losing those good jobs. We may see that it's unaffordable, and profits that are being made in our city are going outside of the province. So yes, we do need to continue and commit to transit, but we need to keep it public. And once again, we need to also make it affordable. So right now, my family tries to use public transit, but it's really unaffordable. So let's make sure that it's more convenient and more affordable for folks to increase ridership. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen? And just a reminder to the candidates, talk right into the mic really loud. And again, the question is, should LRT expansion carry on, accelerate, or pause, and why?
So I think when it comes to the LRT that we currently are building, we're not going to obviously rip up the tracks and stuff. So I think we need to keep going with that. I do think we need to look at the amount of money that we are spending on it. We're looking at City Council in the spring just approved over $1 billion for a 4-kilometer stretch of LRT to go further south. I see that we could have probably built or purchased a lot of electric buses for that same amount of money. LRT is important, but we also have to look at the future of our city and how we're building it. If we're planning on 15-minute nodes, is funneling everybody into the center of our city the future of transportation? We have to look at the way companies are going. Since COVID, a lot of companies have decided not to open up their offices again, and more and more people are working from home. So we have to look at, is this the way of the future? So thank you.
Ashley?
All right, so with the routes that are already planned, and obviously the Valley Line Southeast that is almost done, fingers crossed. I know the construction's been quite painful for a lot of folks. Yes, we should be carrying on with that. A lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of energy has gone into that. For me, I would like to see the LRT complemented with other modes of public transportation. So, bus network. I was just chatting with folks even this evening about the bus network redesign. There's definitely some concerns around the loss of neighborhood routes. And if we want a viable, attractive public transportation network, we need routes that make sense. A lot of the routes that were lost through the bus network redesign, they're hurting seniors, they're hurting young families, having to walk a really far distance just to catch a bus. We're going to have a conversation on the next council about how to potentially add some of those back so that our transit system is connected and viable for everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Daniel?
Howdy. This might not be my best one on this suit, but I do know that the LRT is not being very well used. I use it every day and love the LRT for what it is. It is the future because we need it for building the hospital. We're going to need it for using it. Sometimes we may need some railroad cars to move tight things into a university area where we have an LRT. We can actually bring things into the university with that LRT, transferring patients, transferring what necessary between helping the hospital out. And as you know, people needing operations more than ever, including myself, which is no big deal. But the reality is that we need a hospital, and that LRT works perfect for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And James?
Well, I can tell you with the construction, I actually only live a block away from the new line, so I can't wait for it to be done. And I do support LRT, but for me, I think that what's happened with City Council is they've become so focused on LRT that we have lost some of what I think are some other strategies to be able to move people around. Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to move people around. And I would like to see bus rapid transit be embraced in the city as well, because these fixed lines are important, but they don't service everybody. And as was already mentioned, this redesign, I think, has been incredibly detrimental to what's happened for mature neighborhoods, for the walking distances and stuff like that. This redesign was launched in April, and we haven't even gone through a winter yet where you have seniors that are expected to walk 600 and 700 meters now that they've done away with the 400-meter rule. And so I'm really, really concerned about mature neighborhoods and those, and I don't want people shut in as a result. And so I think we've lost a bit of our focus in terms of moving people by putting it all eggs in one basket in transit in terms of LRT. And so I'd like to see a shift back to some extent and see bus rapid transit as well.
Okay. Carolyn?
Thank you. As a project manager, I understand the importance of having a project start on time, finish on time, and stay on budget. So we've already seen that the Metro line, that did not occur. We have the Valley line, and it's a year behind schedule. It's not being opposed to LRT development so much, but it's taking the pause to understand what went well with the project, what didn't go so good, and how do we do better before we continue with another project. So the contracts have been signed now on the West LRT, and so that is something that the new council will have to deal with. And it's unfortunate that they didn't do a proper assessment, in my mind, before proceeding on another line. Thank you.
Okay, and Liz.
Transit is the #1 expense budget item. 16% of Edmontonians use transit. And I would say for the LRT, we need to pause and we need to reset. We need to find out, how do we increase ridership? Currently, there is no real action plan from the City of Edmonton to increase ridership. Also, we need to figure out, how do we increase our revenues versus just looking at fares. we have no strategy on that as well. So I would say pause until we figure out some strategies on increasing ridership as well as increasing revenue for the LRTs. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Corey. And the question is, should effects on the climate be taken into account in all major city council decisions? And then why or why not?
Okay, thank you. That's a great question, and it's absolutely. I've got a young family. This is top of mind for so many folks. I was just out door knocking just the other day with my friend, and climate came up so many times on the doorsteps. People are really concerned about this. And after the summer that we just had with all of the smoke, and everybody is understanding that this is a crucial issue. We need bold action now. We need climate champions. We need people who will address this at every single decision that is made. And one of the best ways to address it is through transportation, is through making better transit systems for Edmontonians, making it more convenient, more affordable, having more active transportation options, having safe communities where people can bicycle, where they can walk around. And, you know, we can lead by example. As City of Edmonton, we can do things that will help reduce emissions. We can change and grandfather in electric vehicles to our city's fleet. That's one of the options. But absolutely, this needs to be taken action. We need to be accountable right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen? And again, the question is, should effects on the climate be taken into account in all major city council decisions? Why or why not?
100%. I think we've all seen over the last few years, every summer, we at least have a month filled with smoke-filled skies, and this summer we saw record temperatures. We need concrete action from City Council, and one of the ways that as a City Council we can make sure that we are taking into account the environment in every single decision that we make is by I am in full support of the council's decision to bring in carbon accounting. So much like a fiscal budget, we would have a carbon budget that would basically every decision we would make would have that carbon budget so we can go forward on that. I believe one of our greatest assets as a community is our river valley system. So we need to make sure that we're protecting that, not only for leisure, but also to make sure that animals have that crucial corridor between the Rocky Mountains and Elk Island National Park. So definitely it should be taken into consideration in every decision we make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ashley? And we're wondering, should effects on the climate be taken into account in all major city council decisions?
So I'm going to say something bold right now, and I've actually publicly said this to City Council previously. Almost every decision that City Council makes is either a decision for or against climate action. Now, City Council has already approved our brand new energy transition strategy, and that is a strategy that lays out the groundwork and the foundation for Edmonton to move towards a low-carbon city. And there's over 100 different action items in this strategy. Everything from river valley preservation and the conservation of our green spaces to creating opportunities for homeowners to take advantage of energy efficiency opportunities, home energy retrofits. That's massive. But one of the biggest ones that I always talk about is that the way that our city has grown over the last few decades has made us a very carbon-intensive city. Since we are so spread out and so sprawling, we are eating into natural farmland, some of the best agricultural areas. We're also creating a city that is very dependent on personal automobiles, which of course has a huge emissions profile as well. So being able to be more efficient with the way that we're growing is another big part of that energy transition strategy. I have a degree in sustainability, and this has been a focus of mine for a long time. Thank you so much.
Okay, Daniel?
Thank you. We clear cut the north and we clear cut the south. Does anybody really think, I mean, I'm just speaking my mind the way our family talks. Does anybody think the middle can be sustained? We have to stop exactly what we're doing right now with the oil tar sands and do exactly what the world is looking for, is we got to take care of our people and ourselves. The river valley we have here in Edmonton is the most beautiful river valley maybe even in the world. And to be here right now, speaking my mind and be able to speak a little bit of my culture, thank you very much. And that's what I can do. Thank you.
Thank you. James? So, effects on the climate should be taken into account in all major city council decisions.
I live in a net zero house with 27 solar panels, so I'm going to tell you that I care about the environment a lot. And I think it is one of the things that actually should be uppermost in councillors' minds because, as I mentioned earlier as well, in terms of urban sprawl, in terms of transportation, in public transit, everything that we do has an effect on the planet. And so we have to do our part. And I want to see us very much embrace starting to do things to be able to make it possible for people to do these kinds. I'm looking at all the houses that I've been door knocking in areas in these mature neighborhoods. And to me, it's just a blank slate of places where we could be doing retrofits to make sure that those homes are more energy efficient, to make sure that they have solar panels and they have better insulation, windows and doors and things like that. And that will create green jobs as well. And so this council, the next council, I hope will take up this challenge because it's a challenge that we're ready for and I think people will embrace. And it's just a matter of us actually getting down to doing that work. And I think there's a lot of people that agree with me on that score.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn?
Well, the answer is yes. And we can start with small measures as far as having electric buses and having smaller electric buses going through our communities at 3 o'clock in an afternoon. And also better retrofits. The U of A did an interesting study on thermal imaging for the loss of heat. We could go into our mature communities and actually target some of the houses and some of the neighborhoods where residents could be offered some practical financial assistance to help retrofit their homes, rather than having it as announceables and then people finding out that, you know, they apply for these programs and the money's been used up. So I think there's some very practical approaches that we could bring to these solutions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Liz?
I'm sure you're getting tired of the same answers, and I would say ditto to many of my colleagues that have answered, but I too want to add that it's incredibly critical that City Council makes decisions based on our environment. Just recently they made a decision on a bylaw for trees, where it's one of the most boldest ones in Canada, where you have to get a permit to protect the trees when you're doing any kind of development. And I thought that's fantastic. And they've also made a commitment to plant 2 million trees for the next 40 years. And so those are the things that we need to pay attention to as we enter into the next 40 years. Thank you.
Okay, and Solar.
My answer is as well yes. I believe with doing that, we also have to take into consideration that we are a winter city. It's really hard to ask Edmontonians to turn the heat down and not drive because let's be real. In the city we live, if you want to do, anybody knows, if you want to do more than 1 or 2 things in a day, you will have to drive. And I believe the way to go to put solar panel on every roof and create incentives where people can afford to get into electric vehicles. And I believe we need to reach our climate goals while we maintain the quality of life for Edmontonians. So I think this vision of everybody is going to bike all year round is not going to work. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Stephen, and the question is, what does affordable housing mean to you?
All right. So as I mentioned earlier, growing up with a mother on age living in affordable housing, it means a lot. And it means that difference between a house and not having a house for a lot of people. And we got to make sure that affordable housing truly means affordable housing. Our city right now, when it gives out grants or grants a development project, oftentimes the developer is only required to have 10 to 20% below market value. That is just a simple fluctuation in market values. So we got to make sure that we're doing better than that. I believe that we should be doing 30% of a person's personal income in rent should be more of where we're headed in that direction, because it'll provide more houses for more people. And we need to create an environment where people aren't on the edge and aren't losing their house because something happened like COVID. Thank you.
Okay. Ashley, what does affordable housing mean to you?
So affordable housing exists on a spectrum. You know, it goes all the way from things like shelters to market rate affordability. And I already spoke about that market rate, you know, having housing opportunities and options in our neighborhoods that young families can afford. But I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about the other end of that spectrum, because that's a huge gap in our city. Housing and homelessness is a top priority of my campaign. A lot of folks are hurting, especially coming out of this pandemic. And I'm a big believer in something called permanent supportive housing. So shelters are kind of a temporary solution, almost kind of a band-aid solution. I would like to see a much more systemic approach. Permanent supportive housing basically is the idea that you're not just putting a roof over someone's head, but you're providing mental health supports, addiction supports, employment supports, so people can really start to recover. So that's a major priority of mine. I'm excited there's 2 new projects in Ward Métis, just south of the river near King Edward Park. One is just near Capilano, near the skate park. That's fantastic. We do need more permanent supportive housing with those 24-hour wraparound services across our city, and I will be a strong advocate for that. Thank you.
Okay. Daniel?
The homeless problem that we're going to be having here in the city of Champions is something that is made in a beautiful community like yours, which actually is the foundation of Canada, of our society as we speak, is the support that we need to have. You know, people just can't be living on the streets. It just can't be. So for the Coliseum, once again, I have to reiterate, on the same platform, and I'm sounding like a broken record, but that Coliseum has to be used for the homeless people that are coming up. The crime that's going to be happening this winter may be something that we may not be used to on any kind of level. And as a humanitarian, doing this from a humanitarian point of view, thank you for letting me have my say.
Thank you. James?
The city had a policy, C582, which was developer-sponsored affordable housing. From 2006 till they abandoned it just earlier this year, there was 26 units created in 15 years. We need to do much better. We need to, and I'm actually on the SECLA board, and we actually were advocates for the supportive housing that's going in on Terrace Road, for example. And so there, and as I mentioned earlier as well, the idea of affordable housing is one of the key things that's intertwined with our zoning and stuff like that. And to me, we're letting the developers off the hook in this city, and they're not doing what they need to do in areas like Strathern Heights, in terms of Hollywood Gardens, and just a myriad of other places where we need to see more affordable housing being built in partnership with these developers who are getting upzoning for lots of the areas in our neighborhoods. And so I would be a strong advocate on council to make sure that we're infusing affordable housing into the mix, because it's everything for a lot of people, and it needs to be tied to income to make sure that people can actually have real affordable housing, not the old 585 policy.
Thank you. Carolyn?
So vulnerable individuals in our communities are our neighbors, and we need to do more to provide these supports. And I support the Housing First program. I guess where the way I would look at it is $17 million is a lot of money. And they built 80 units at a cost of $221,000 per unit. A further 14, let's say 0.2 million has been released. So at today's building costs, we might get 50 units out of that. We've already seen in their announcement of the 4 motels that they've purchased for retrofits that right away we're going to have more units available. Winter is just around the corner. If this had been done at the beginning and we had had more buildings retrofitted, I think that we would have been able to have a bigger supply of housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz?
One of the first things that I would do is we need to define what affordable housing is. Whenever we talk about affordable housing, many people come with different definitions. We need to really identify as a city, what are we talking about when we talk about affordable housing? And even this evening, you had conversations from shelters to all the way up to different developments, etc. So we need to define that for sure. The other one is that I would say that we need to bring back, we used to have a basement suite grant years ago. We need to bring that back into our mature neighborhoods so that we can have families and young people move back in. We also need to determine and figure out that we need to have policies and new development that affordable housing, if it's 30%, 10%, whatever that definition is, and not just 1 and 2 bedrooms, but we also have 3 bedrooms where families with children can move in as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Solar?
I would be expanding on city's housing first initiative if I'm in the city council. Another thing that I want to propose is that bring down the cost of building shelters and affordable housing by leveraging new technologies. There is a lot of newer technologies like 3D printing with concrete and such things that have reduced the cost of building significantly. I believe we need some sort of a communal space where the folks who can't raise their hands and ask for help, they can be provided with these essential services, so they can get up on their feet and get back to being part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Corey, what does affordable housing mean to you?
Thank you. I'm thinking about just the other night when I was in your community and I was door knocking, and I had a really great conversation with a young person, and they said there's 3 people in their house and they can't afford the rent. They can't afford the mortgage. And, you know, they said to me that the infills are going up in this ward. You know, they can't afford a $500,000 house. They can't afford $750,000 house. And I think And I think that what's been happening right now is city council is approving these developments. They're allowing people who have access to money and people who, you know, can afford these types of things access to our communities. And affordable housing is so important. You know, we're having these conversations even in my household where times are just really tough for regular working families. They're talking about like childcare versus rent. Right? People are having these tough conversations. What you need in this ward is somebody who understands those challenges, who will stand up for you, and you know who has your back. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start the next round with Ashley. And this question is, when it comes to the city budget, are you inclined to support tax increases or spending cuts, and why?
So for me, you know, there's both the recognition that Edmontonians have endured tax increases for the last 23 of 24 years, and that's challenging. You know, a lot of families are finding things are very tight, and part of the reason those taxes keep going up again, I sound like a bit of a broken record, but it's because we've spread out so far. We're just trying to maintain all of that infrastructure, all of the services across a very far distance. So getting to a sustainable tax regime is going to require us to be a little bit smarter with the way that we're growing. So being able to sort of enhance and maintain the neighborhoods and communities that we already have before we continue in that pattern is incredibly necessary. So being able to gently densify these neighborhoods, being able to have enough people to have a sustainable tax base is something I'd like to see. But in the interim, we can't be making massive cuts. I don't want to see core programs, rec centers, libraries, our bus network cut further. So that's a big one for me, being able to, in the long run, reel that in, but in the short run, recognize that these are core services people rely on every single day. We can't lose that. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle? So are you inclined to support tax increases or or spending cuts?
100% behind saving our money. But unfortunately, some of our money is missing. We don't know where some of that money is in the Heritage Trust Fund, but it seems if you can do these type of things with a computer, you can get away with it a little bit. But we should have lots of money here, and nobody ever wants to investigate ever into these things. As far as saving money, taking down the Coliseum itself is going to cost a lot more money than what anybody thinks. And the building stands as it is, as beautiful as the day has been done. We've done the Charles Capsule, where we've blessed it at least 100 times, and we've done the same thing with the Coliseum. So if we want to save money, why not just save the Coliseum? That's a lot of money wasted for absolutely nothing. And the root reason why I'm here right now with you people. Thank you.
Thank you. James?
It seems almost every year at budget time, there's these amenities that are always up on the chopping block. I spoke at council budget hearings 2 years ago, and it was the East Glen pool and the Scona pool and the Oliver pool that were up for being cut. And so I'm not in favor of actually seeing all these cuts that are going to then affect the core neighborhoods in particular. And I know it's a bit of a balancing act. We can't keep increasing above inflation. And so I think there's also lots of efficiencies that can be found in ways that I'm a big believer in auditing, and so that we can then find out where some of the inefficiencies are in some of these departments. And you can't do those all in 1 year, but to move through the various departments and making sure there was a report not too long ago that also said there was a lot of upper management and middle management in some of these departments, and those efficiencies could also be streamlined as well. So I would be, if I get on council, I'd be happy to support increases that are not any more than inflation, but I'm not in favor of seeing massive cuts as well to core services.
Thank you. Carolyn?
So a lot of my policies, a lot of what helps to form my ideas going forward really comes at the doors from having engaged directly with the residents. And when it comes to taxes and spending, I don't hear anyone saying to me that they don't want to pay their fair share of taxes. But they really need to have more accountability on the large capital projects. When we see a project that is approved and the public is told it's going to be built for $30 million and it ends up costing $120 million, there needs to be some accountability. That's $90 million just when you look at our mature communities that aren't being maintained, that could have gone back into the renewals. People are capped out when it comes to tax increases. That's what I'm hearing at the doors. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz?
I would say neither. Do not increase and do not cut. I oversee in my job a budget of $10 million. And in the last year, I've had to do with what I can with that money. I wasn't given more, even when we were in COVID, and it wasn't taken away as well. So we were finding efficiencies. And so I would say City of Edmonton has a huge budget, of course, and we need to look at the budget, look at where are we wasting the money, and streamline that money to areas that is needed. So I am not for tax increases, and I'm not for tax cuts either. Thank you.
Salar?
Yes, I'm going to agree with Liz here. I'm not for increases or neither for cuts. But one thing I want to say is finding efficiencies is very important because we have spent $700 million on consulting fees recently, and the city is spending around $4 billion on expansion of LRT. I think there is a lot of room to find efficiencies, and that will be one of my core focuses when I get to the city council, to how we can be more efficient. And I want to add one more thing. This LRT line, just Caroline talked about, where they spend, I think you said, approved $1 billion for 4 kilometers. One of the candidates said here, maybe James. That is very expensive. I've been looking up. That is for LRT. That is way above the ticket price. So we have to find out why is that. Thank you.
Okay, Corey?
Thanks. I think that we can have a city that looks after folks, that provides the services, and I think that we just need to elect the right people at City Council who will make those decisions, take a practical approach. So there has been a lot of wasteful spending at City Council. There's been $23 million from COVID relief money that was given to big developers, downtown developers. That money should have gone to families. We've seen hundreds of millions of dollars go to consultants when we've got good city staff in City Hall that can do some of that work. There also needs to be, when I spoke at city budget just a few months ago, there needs to be a conversation about new revenue streams. And so what I'm hearing in Ward Métis is that we need to look for those options. One of the things that I proposed is a tax for derelict housing and commercial properties. So we've seen in these wards where houses go derelict, they attract a bunch of problems, and we need to look for new ways to incentivize renting out those places. It will address houselessness issues. It will also act as a new revenue stream for us in Edmonton. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephen?
Okay, so I think I'll kind of echo what other people were saying. I don't want to cut, I don't want to increase, but I want to look for efficiencies. I think operational silos are one of the biggest hindrances to keeping our budgets under control. Just an example, this past year, my community league, we installed a full solar array on our league, which was awesome, and part of that was funded by city money. And then about 2 months later, the city came and planted trees right in front of our solar panels, basically making them useless, right? Well, not yet, in 10 years or 15 years when the trees grow. But we got to look at things like that. How come departments aren't able to look at a property and know what's going on that property, right? We need to look at these inefficiencies and make sure that we address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Daniel, you're going to be up first. And this next question is, you will be 1 vote among 13 if you are elected. What experience do you have in building coalitions and working with communities to realize your vision?
The people I see here right in front of me right now, this is my first speech I've ever done in my life. And I just, I'm really quite at odds at really what to say, because I'm really nobody. But I give you this much, I'll do the very best I can to help my city become one of the most revolutionary cities in the world.
Thank
you.
James?
Well, for me, I'm going to draw on my 20 plus years of experience working as a teacher, educator, and working with parents. I've also been about 20 years working in my own communities of Bonnie-Doon and Strathern and on SECLA board and other different agencies and so on. So I think that council is a very interesting dynamic as a political entity, because it's all you need to do is get 7 votes. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you even have to have the mayor on side. So really it is a dynamic where if you get a coalition of like-minded people and you work together and you're not obstructionist, you're trying to actually work with those other councillors, there's a lot of things we can do. And I'm actually excited for that opportunity to build those coalitions and find like-minded people on other sides of the political fence perhaps, but that have the same ideas on particular issues, and working with those people. And I think I'm a builder in that regard, because I'm not going to be someone that's going to try and build fences around myself to stop those conversations from happening.
Thank you. Carolyn.
So I started off as a police officer, and I'm 5'6". So you can imagine that I had to develop good communication skills very early on. And I've been able to maintain those through my career, and that is very, very important. I've also have been spending my whole campaign period at the doors engaging with residents, because the voices and the ideas that come from the residents is what's going to resonate and help me bring those to City Hall. As a director, when you walk into an organization, you spend your first 90 days going around and meeting and talking and building relationships with everyone that you can. It's about listening and understanding the organization to be able to work well as a team. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz?
My leadership style is collaborative. That's a good fit for me. I'm a person that works within teams. Within the social service sector, we're constantly collaborating either with the government, constantly, frontline staff, and the families that we serve, and the existing management of our agency. So being in a collaborative position for conversation to make decisions is very much a comfortable place for me. I've done that for many, many years. And I would say that it's in collaboration that some of the best decisions are made, and we just get to have a real, I call it, let's just hash it out, folks, and let's just have these courageous dialogue that needs to exist to make the best decision for the families that we're serving.
Thank you. Solar?
First, let me say, if we have, if all the candidates from other wards are just like the candidates from Ward Métis, I think we won't have any problems with that. It's everyone here seems to have a pretty good attitude. My experience has been, I had a lot of experience coaching. I've been a volunteer soccer coach in the community, not just because my kid plays, because I genuinely just enjoy coaching. I've coached in junior achievement for kids to become better with building companies and you know, building a better future for themselves. And as a counselor as well, when I go in there, we are a team. That's how I see it, and I will be there to build everybody else's capability around me to succeed. So I'm someone who wants to lift everyone up, and hopefully we all can grow together. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey?
So this is a great question, and I just wanted to share with you folks that I've worked as a representative for the last 7 years. I work for a national union organization called the Canadian Labour Congress, and I've sat on so many committees and so many coalitions. I've sat at kitchen room tables talking to folks about, you know, their workplace issues. I've also sat at really big tables with the Prime Minister. I am a part of a national organization. So my background is as a registered nurse, and I think that, you know, we need to lead with care and compassion. That's what I bring to the table. I definitely am a collaborator. appreciator. I think that, you know, when people come with diverse perspectives and diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, it actually adds to our communities, it adds to the tapestry of our society. And I really want to help amplify those issues. Like I said, I work as a representative. That's the role of this job, is to echo your concerns. And I know what it is, know what it takes to build relationships and to make sure that your voice is heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen?
All right. So a big part of my experience does come from working in community leagues and building communities. So I don't know if you've ever sat around a community league board meeting, but it's a very diverse group of people with all different types of opinions and different ways of getting to maybe the same end solution anyway. If you come to my backyard and sit around my fire, you'll see people of all different political stripes, all different backgrounds, just chit-chatting away. And I do believe that that experience is what we need on council. We need people that are willing to not only get along and sit in an echo chamber of their own ideas, but to hear everybody's ideas and represent that on council. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ashley?
So one of the reasons I love local government is because it centers around collaboration, coalition building, and conversation. And I think that's a really special place. For the past decade, I have been working sort of in that dynamic space between community members, community leagues, industry members, different stakeholders, businesses. And having been in that space, you start to recognize that being surrounded by diverse voices with different perspectives is going to help you arrive at a better solution. So for me, being able to step into the role of city councilor, that's the vision and that's the approach that I would apply. And I've been around long enough and been involved in city council long enough to know that it is an essential part of the job. You don't get much done if you're going in with a really sort of combative, fighting attitude. I think we've seen what happens in those cases. So collaboration, coalition building, conversation, those are my 3 C's. And that's how I'd approach things. Thank you.
Thank you. Miles, do we have time for one more question, or do you want me to wrap it up?
I think we could do another one.
Okay. Then, James, you're going to be the first one. And this question is, where do you stand on development in the River Valley?
The River Valley is not something that I actually am super passionate about. And there's a number of concerns I have with the current council and some of the decisions that have been made. One of them in terms of which I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Gold Bar wastewater treatment plant and how that was the expansion was trying to be done without really consulting with anybody, and that lack of transparency really alarmed me. I'm also very, very opposed to seeing the E.L. Smith solar farm. I said earlier that I actually have solar panels on my own house, but I don't think that that is a proper place for it. It's a wildlife corridor, and the River Valley needs to be rehabilitated. We need to do a lot more to make sure that the pathways are enhanced and rehabilitated. And so if we are going to look after that River Valley, and we saw during COVID how many people have used it, and it's literally tens of thousands of users a day and so on. And so I'm super passionate about seeing this River Valley well protected and not seeing any kind of commercial development that is going to take away from that.
Thank you. Carolyn?
So I also am against their recent vote on the solar panel in our ribbon of green here in Edmonton. And then in regards to Safe Gold Bar Park Alliance, I've actually lived on 109A facing the wastewater treatment plant. And through the months of February and March, I printed off and shared directly into the mailboxes of the residents in Gold Bar, Capilano, Rundle, Beverly, and Highlands the information for the upcoming public hearing, because a lot of residents who I talked to thought that it had already been addressed. I spoke to council on May 10th, opposing any further expansion, and felt that the city elected city councillors on the governance model should be voting on this model. If you leave it to administration or EPCOR, then they will only seek to achieve the business model. So you have to take into account the multi-generational, the social, and the environmental impacts on the communities. So we need to have city councillors, elected officials, who are brave enough to stand up when you hear from the residents how important this matter means to them. And that's the type of city councillor I'll be, and I'm looking for your vote. Thank you, Carolyn Matthews.
Thank you. And now Liz.
Our river valley is the jewel of Edmonton, and it is known all over North America, and we need to keep it free of development of solar farms. And I would say what we really need to do is make it more accessible. We need to fix the pathways that exist that are being deteriorated. We need to ensure that people with wheelchairs or strollers, young moms, can use it. That's the type of development I like to see. And then keep the rest of it just as beautiful as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Salar, where do you stand on development in the River Valley?
I think River Valley in Edmonton is one of the biggest highlights of this city. Since I've lived in Edmonton, I've enjoyed it so many times, and this is one of the few things I talk about when people ask me what kind of a city Edmonton is. So I think we should definitely preserve our River Valley. We should be in communication with River Valley preservation communities and organizations that are doing the work in the trenches to make sure that we are aware of all the intricacies goes into preserving our River Valley. And I am definitely against having solar farm there. I think we have one of the biggest cities compared to we have a lot of land. So I think we should definitely, there's no reason to put solar farm on the River Valley. I think we have a lot of space. My name is Salar Melli. Thank you all for coming out. I'm looking for your support as well. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Corey?
Thanks, folks. I know it's getting late and it's getting a little bit chilly here, but I just wanted to say that the River Valley and our green spaces in Edmonton are definitely something to be proud of and something to stand up for and something to protect. I know so many community residents use the River Valley and use it for leisure. They use it to, for all sorts of different things. And there is an opportunity. People have been seeing, trying to develop that space. And to me, that's not what our city is about. We need to make sure that it's accessible for folks. For a while there, City Council was talking about charging fees for parking. And once again, that's making it inaccessible for a lot of people. What we need to do is encourage that space and the use of that space. We need to stand up and protect it. And, just for leisure and just for the beauty of our city. And once again, I just wanted to thank you again for being out here tonight. Thank you for being involved and engaged. Corey Longo, I'd love to chat with you after. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen?
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, the River Valley is one of our greatest assets as a community. Not only does it serve as a wildlife corridor, but it also provides a carbon sink for our city to offset our carbon emissions. We need to protect it at any cost. It has gone protected for a long time, but recently we've seen more and more developments in the area. We, as a city council, we need to take the River Valley bylaws seriously. It's meant to protect our River Valley and keep it here for generations to come. It's the pride of our city. We hold festivals down there. We do recreation, everything down there. So I want to see it protected. And I also am opposed to the clear cutting of our River Valley in order to put up solar panels. It's just greenwashing solar in order to destroy another thing. So we need to protect it at all costs. Thank you. I'm Stephen Townsend. Bye.
Thank you. Ashley.
So Ward Métis is the only ward that spans both north and south of the river. So I think it's doubly as important that we protect and preserve it. For me, like I did mention, I have a degree in sustainability, and not only is the river valley massive in terms of ecological function, but it's important for the health and well-being of Edmontonians, and not just physical health, but mental health. And I think we've noticed that over the past year and a half, I've seen more people out and about enjoying the river valley than ever before. Now, in terms of development in the river valley, I would say improving walkability, improving the quality of our trail system so that everyone can safely and accessibly use it is what I'd like to see. But other than that, being able to preserve this gem in our city is utmost important. So thank you very much, everybody. My name's Ashley Salvador. I will be sticking around after. Come hunt me down if you'd like to chat further. Thank you so much, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you. And Daniel.
I did my vision quest as requested by my elders on September 27th. I landed up on Laurier Park in my boat where my gas ran out. I could hardly walk. When I was walking up the hill towards Storyland Valley Zoo, they looked like I was drunk, but I wasn't. I was just so beat from doing my quest. And when I finished my quest, I still never had what I need because I have to have something, right? I looked at Lucy the elephant for 2 hours straight. Now, I know this sounds oddball, but the River Valley is a conduit of energy, of spiritualism, of such huge importance to the Native people. And I encourage everybody to go to the Storyland Valley Zoo in the River Valley and see Lucy before she's gone. She'll be the last elephant the North will ever see. They had 10,000 generations of their lives here in Alberta. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you, candidates, for doing such a great job of answering all those questions and keeping on time. That's all we have time for today. The sun is going down. If you want to know more about these candidates, Taproot Edmonton sent them all a survey and asked them 30 questions about things that we heard from, about that people like you sent us. I got a quiet voice, Daniel, so maybe just hold off and then, okay, thank you. So we've sent all the candidates questions, and they've answered, some of them have answered them, more of them will answer them, I hope. You can find those at taprootedmonton.ca, and you're going to be able to take that same survey after September 20th when the nominations close and find out who you match up with on other questions and some questions that we asked here tonight. Thank you again to the candidates. Thank you for our very wonderful in real life audience. I'm sure that our live stream audience is wonderful too. And thank you again to the Greater Hardesty Community Sustainability Coalition for organizing this event so amazingly well. Thank you, Lincoln, for bringing it to people. And remember to vote October 18th. Thank you.
Yeah.